with the wage gap. The wage gap is, or as I mentioned before, it's an issue that I'm incredibly passionate about, closing the gender wage gap. And when we talk to people about it in the Office of Economic Empowerment, one of the things that we often have to remind people is there's no single solution to closing the gender wage gap. It's a multi-pronged problem that involves a multi-pronged solution. It's up to the government, it's up to businesses, and we also need to empower women too to help solve problems. A few years ago, we passed one of the strongest, at the time it was the strongest, equal pay law in the country, banning paycheck history being asked, and in promoting more pay transparency. That was a long time in the making, but it's not just passing legislation that is needed to help close the gender pay gap. We also tell businesses that they have to look at their own businesses and do an audit in order to see if they have a gender pay gap. And that's one of the things that we tell people, and we held roundtables across the state and talked to businesses about that. Many of them said that they had not conducted an audit. And we also tell women too that we want them to be empowered to negotiate their salaries or negotiate a raise, which is why we host salary negotiation workshops both in person and online. So again, it's a multi-pronged problem, and we need the government, we need businesses, employers to help solve this problem.
It's a hard question. I've been looking at, my son is 6, and I feel like he has there's no concept with him about, obviously he knows he's a boy and, his friend is a girl or whatever, but, on his baseball team, it's girls and boys. He was watching a women's hockey game the other night, and he's telling me he was guessing that the goalie was going to be this male goalie that he knows from another team, but there was nothing in his mind told him, well, this is just girls playing, So I guess it's up to all of us to kind of foster that in these generations coming behind us, that we're not different. I mean, obviously there are big differences, but as far as the workplace goes, it should be equal, and maybe there are some industries, I know there are some industries where it's still very heavily male dominated. Males hold a lot of the higher up positions, but perhaps those males could mentor and foster relationships with these women who are coming in who are interested and qualified, and mentor them into these elevated roles, so that women have an equal place across the board. But I think it takes all of us, men and women. It shouldn't be entirely on women, and I think there are a lot of men who are open to helping with this issue as well. It's just getting that together and moving it forward.
Like I said, a lot of this comes from making those structural and behavioral changes that sort of enable and enhance participation in society and in the workplace. I think where we sit right now, as we look toward a post-COVID world and a post-COVID recovery at some point, I think one of the best things that we can do is to really prioritize early education and childcare and access to childcare. I'm concerned right now about that pretty intensely. Our daycare is going to be closed until the end of June, and our workplaces may be open. And, luckily we're in a position where we may have flexibility around that, and I have a partner who I can work with on that. But a lot of particularly hourly wage workers are not going to be in the same position. And I think, we're already seeing some women having to make the choice to voluntarily exit the workplace right now, and to exit the market to make sure that their children are cared for. And I think that as we look toward a recovery, we need to be really intentional about it and intentional about making sure that everyone is included in it.
I think for businesses and governments, I think just continuing to take the lead in addressing pay equity in women, women that work for government agencies, women, and including women in business, as well as look at that pay inequity for women of color with the implicit bias lens. Additionally, those are the two key pieces about pay inequity. And I think also, for schools and also any institutions, setting the tone of this is a place where people are going to be respected and treated equally can be really helpful. While it can take time, and a lot of us are in positions where we may be the only, or just feel isolated in our roles, in our workplaces, it doesn't need to, while that may be true, our workplaces can still support us, and school places can still support us and set a tone of really respect. So, for instance, the Treasury, the thing I love and I tell all the time is everyone learned how to say my name right the day during my first interview, and that's something that I've never experienced before. So while and that's a wonderful feeling that allows me to feel very comfortable and then focus on my work. And so if I'm in a space where I might be the only person, I feel supported by my coworkers in my workplace, just from the basic amount of respect that you would treat anyone. And that comes, I think, from a leadership role and you guys. So I think the pay equity and the taking steps to send the message that who is here, we will treat you well, while you're here in this environment.
On an individual level, I would say that it's just as important to remember that our individual actions and words and behaviors and beliefs can inform and impact our villages and our communities and society at large. So in major ways. So there's power and importance in what we say and how we behave and who we support. So treat each other with respect.
If we are seeing ourselves in spaces that are meaningful and impactful, we'll see more young ladies leaning into that and aspiring to that, making that a goal. I think we have a lot of very talented, inspirational women that are usually in our networks already, and we just haven't really tapped into them. So I think that increasing that visibility, encouraging networking and building relationships, I think that will then lead to the change that we want to see.